Hello, this is a little video followed by a time-lapse of my entry for the Ludum Dare 26. The theme was minimalism, and I decided to interpret that as a minimalist lifestyle, and the pursuit of one. And the best character I thought of to do that would be Samus. So you start with all of those equipment that just appeared on the screen, and the idea is to find these little Chozo shrine things. You stand on them, and then you can choose whichever item you want to leave behind and get rid of your equipment. So the idea is to get rid of all your possessions and then return to the ship and lead a happy life of peace and tranquility. The difficulty in the game is obviously that, for one thing, the more equipment you drop, the weaker you become, and also when you drop equipment you can no longer access certain areas, so you have to figure out the ideal route to take. I think there are probably several solutions to the puzzle that the game presents, but so the idea is you obviously can't drop the power bomb until you've been down that area. But you can pick up items again if you drop them and then realise that you need them, as long as you can still access them. So that's the basic idea of the game. There's now a time lapse. Yeah, so the first thing I did was I needed to code all the abilities first thing before any levels were built or any enemies or anything. Because if the game didn't have the abilities, and if the abilities didn't all do something that the player would miss when they give them up, then it would all be kind of pointless. As it is, there are some weapons that are obviously less useful than others, but there's a choice to the game, which is important. For a while I did have some items that didn't do anything, like I was going to have the grappling beam and it didn't do anything, and I was thinking, people will just give up the grappling beam first because I haven't coded anything to use it with. But then I replaced it with the X-ray scope thing, which worked out a lot better. It's still kind of useless, really, because you can tell where the bombable areas are just by the level design, I think. But at least it does something. The next thing I coded was all the breakable blocks, obviously important. I did all this in a little test level rather than actually building the levels first. Did some art, and then I paused the recording to actually sketch out the level design on a piece of paper. Then I'm starting to build the levels, making sure you can drop all the items, making sure it all works properly. I started by just doing the levels with a one colour block rather than doing any textures, which ended up taking a bit more time later on when I did the textures and had to go back in and redo everything. But I figured if I don't have time to do the textures, then at least I've got something, so it was important to do that, I think. Yeah, I'm testing out the monsters, I think. I just put one of each monster in the little start area. I was going to actually take them out so that the criteria is empty like it is in Super Metroid, but I ended up forgetting to do that, so there's one little crawling thing in the first area. There was lots of enemies that I ended up cutting, and the ones that are in it, some of them don't work quite as well as they should. Like the crawling things don't walk on the sides, because I figured that would take too much time. I didn't get around to making it so that the steel beetle things freeze, and when enemies freeze you can't stand on them, which is kind of the whole point in freezing enemies. So now the freeze beam's only use is really for the metroids, which obviously you can't kill unless you have the freeze beam. Also intending to have bosses, you can see in the game that there's an area down in North here that was clearly supposed to have Ridley in it. And there's an area that's supposed to have the ghost ship thing, creature, and an area for Mother Brain. But I didn't have time for those things. Had to make sure that I got the important things done, which I did. I worked almost to the finish line, which I don't normally do in these games. Oh, and the time lapse is almost over. Wait.